Thanks for having me to share my thesis. I'm Lucy and I've recently graduated in architecture from Newcastle University. But I've been studying biomaterials and biotechnology alongside my studies for around 2 years now. And I'm really keen to integrate this into the built environment. And yeah, with that today I'll be looking at the appropriate aesthetic for biomaterials. So when beginning my thesis, I looked to precedents from contemporary design media outlets to gain inspiration for biomaterials and what I want to create, and what structures could look like, and just get a feel for what's already out there. So as you can see from the examples on the screen, the contemporary portrayal of biomaterials is very much centered around product and novel, pristine outcomes. These mimic that of actual products. So you can see there the Modern Synthesis's bag in a collaboration with a high fashion retail brand, and Blast Studios 3D printed mycelium columns. So initially I aspired to produce a biomaterial that echoed this excellence. And from this I gained a curiosity surrounding wetware and the value of physical making in comparison to conceived spaces such as AutoCAD, which is like a digital modelling and drawing software in architecture. But this train of thought relied upon the idea that to develop sustainable outcomes, there needs to be a physical human making process, as I found digital spaces couldn't quantitatively predict a material's characteristics. So this is when I go on to my own explorations in bacterial cellulose. I went on to grow my own bacterial cellulose, or some people may know that as kombucha leather. And the ambiguity of the process meant that I continued to grow these potentially harmful spores in my room for a good 2 weeks. So this did fail for me. This went wrong. But I think now looking back, it's the best thing that could have happened. These kitchen studies made me soon realise that the precedents I was looking towards did not provide inclusivity in the process, and instead a strict process and expression of material vibrancy from all reports and images in the media. So I realised I was experimenting with an idealised form in mind, wanting to dictate what the material outcome was. So even to the point that bacterial cellulose has been widely recognised as kombucha leather, it neglects the attempts that bacterial cellulose and biomaterials alike make to aid the climate solution, and instead produce a term that's more palatable for society and centered around consumerism. So this kind of point and arc in my thesis, it was definitely a pivot, as it produced a richer question as to whether the lack of control provides a new understanding and aesthetic of living material as democratic, reflective and process-led. So after multiple attempts of trying to grow this SCOBY, bacterial cellulose kombucha leather piece, I finally created something. As you can see on the left there, I've dried out my bacterial cellulose to create this leather-like material. But again, this further reiterated the importance of process and documentation, because there's nowhere in papers that say that this material keeps evolving, growing, shrinking, drying. It evolved with time, context, and it adapted to the conditions of my room. This was 4 weeks after the kombucha leather had actually dried out, so it just continued to evolve. So on this screen, you can see that I contrast my experiment with modern synthesis woven nanocellulose that provides a somewhat idealized, pristine version of what my realism and experience look like. So from this, I proposed in my thesis a transition from product to process, so to create not in scientific labs and silos, but spaces that relate to the context of which the biomaterial instinctively thrives. and with the community engaged in the process as it does. This way we can re-establish relations between material, form, process, people and use. A key thinker that relates this is Jane Bennett and her new materialist paradigm, which explores a relationship between matter, meaning, agency and social works. So it's all about truly experiencing being with the materials we're designing with and alongside. And I was really lucky to experience this firsthand at the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment at Newcastle University. I was an intern there, growing the growing room, which was a mycelium wool cellulose composite pavilion. And it was full of contingencies as we grew or built the pavilion. This provided an interactive and expressive perspective of like biomaterials that often lies within the margins and is not shown in media. And then in the same vein, here I further look at this democratic and inclusive methods of engaging with biomaterial through my vegetable paper streams. So this was all about trial and error, material honesty, documentation and relatability. So I actually used vegetables from Lidl's vegetable boxes that were just like already going to waste to create and tinker with this kind of like tinker with biomaterials and create like a fun way of exploring material possibilities. So this again reiterates that instead of creating an aesthetic of biomaterial that is detached from social, ecological and economical complexities, it's vital that the discussion surrounding biomaterial remains inclusive and honest. So creating a material narrative linking to what Lauren was saying previously, with examples like Civic Square and the circularity of the donut model. These three pillars of sustainability can work together in this more like this microcosm of biomaterials, but also it spreads wider into all realms of sustainability. So I just want to highlight that it's a living process, and the biomaterial sphere, and as the biomaterial sphere evolves, it'd be great to see living archives as spaces integrated within communities, meaning that we can tackle climate from grassroots methods rather than creating more barriers. That's all I've got to present, but thank you very much.